Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first brown bag of 2021. I'm just going to do a brief introduction now, and we're going to give a few minutes to allow for some other participants to log in. So we will begin our presentation with Dr. Miller at 12:05. Okay, welcome everyone to our brown bag of 2021. Just some brief messages before we begin. I want to remind everyone to remain muted during our program so that there isn't any background noise while Dr. Miller is speaking. We are recording this for GPS, so I appreciate everyone staying muted and not sharing your screens throughout the presentation. Also, I will be sending a follow-up email after this presentation with the slides for today, as well as some information on how to obtain your healthy UH points. So today's presentation is working from home, how to stay productive and resilient. Giving our presentation today is Dr. David Miller. Dr. Miller is the founding medical director for pediatric integrative medicine with the Connor Integrative Health Network and Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital. He has been in practice for more than 20 years and comes to Cleveland from Chicago, where he developed and directed an integrative medical practice. Dr. Miller is fully trained in Chinese medicine as well as conventional and holistic Western pediatrics, and incorporates acupuncture, body work, mind-body therapies, nutrition, and herbal medicine into his care. He is a strong believer in utilizing all care options for patients and is excited to join UH, where so much world-class care is already happening. Dr. Miller is available for in-person care at Emory Road and Rainbow's Babies and Children's Hospital, and via telehealth as well. As part of UH, he does accept insurance for visits. Dr. Miller offers consultative support as you can keep the primary care doctors you love, but also work with him to explore new care strategies. Welcome, Dr. Miller.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Angela. I really appreciate being here. And hi to everybody. And I hope today's discussion will be both really useful and hopefully fun and practical for you as well. And yeah, we want to talk about working from home and how to keep yourself working optimally when you do that. But I think a lot of the things we're going to talk about today are just generally useful. These are extraordinarily stressful times. And if you are like me, you are feeling that stress. There's a few things going on in the news. There's a few things happening with some infectious stuff going on that has all of us kind of on edge a little bit. So the more tools we have in our toolkit to take care of ourselves and to control sort of the panic responses, the anxiety, the loss of focus, all of that kind of stuff, so the better for all aspects of our lives. Sorry, I muted myself accidentally. Today, we want to think about strategies to optimize your work from home experience. I know many of us are still doing that. I worked at home for a number of months. I actually came to UH March 1st and had about a week of normalcy. And then, we've been adapting since then. And I am back in the clinic part-time, but spent some months really trying to figure out how to best keep myself healthy and connected while working from home. I also want us to think about the importance of contributing to a positive culture here at UH. Just all of us are part of this web of providers, this web of caregivers, whether you're doing direct patient care, whether you're doing, support work, any aspect of the system, you're an integral part of that. And each of us contributes to sort of the milieu of the whole environment. So thinking of us as really working in a pool together too, and we want to, keep the water as clean and positive as we can, and then use some mindfulness and breathing techniques to help control some of our stress responses as well. Sort of real practical kinds of things that you can do yourself and try anywhere. At work, at home, if you end up, on the bus at some point, driving, any of those things is all safe and useful. So areas to consider when we're working at home, things about like schedule, including your exercise, we'll look at your work environment, some of your biomechanics. How are you sitting right now? How are you, moving throughout the day? What are you doing to optimize yourself from not getting neck pain, head pain, shoulder pain, carpal tunnel syndrome, all of those kinds of things. And then nutrition at home too can be really challenging. It's much easier to snack throughout the day. So we want to be really cautious about that so we don't, augment the COVID-15 with even more. We also are working at home, many people with their kids, with their pets. And so thinking about that as part of our shared culture, assuring we're still getting some social connection, and then thinking about gratitude practice, breathing, and mindfulness. So I know this is a little bit pediatric, but I am a pediatrician. And so, honestly, none of us have really outgrown the need for this basic kind of a structure. And so what this is just to say is that, when we go to work every day, when we get up, when we drive to the office, when we have peers, when we have a lunch break, we have these things, we have a structure that's sort of imposed upon our day that we move through, and it helps us kind of know when things are going to happen. When you're working from home, a lot of times you don't have the luxury of that, right? You have to create the own structure for your day. And that can mean it could go in either direction. You could end up, getting a lot less work done because you're distracted by things around the house. You end up doing this or that, and you're not really working when you want to be working, and you're not really playing when you should be playing. Or it can mean quite the opposite. And I think for many people, this does. They find themselves just working extra hours, working more and more because there's no obvious sort of stop time. You don't leave the office and go home. You are home, and at home is your office. And so you have to be really careful that you're taking care of yourself while you do this, and really prioritizing, both your work time, but also your relaxation time. Because I think we know really, really well, even from an evidence-based standpoint,
Hello.
that the breaks that you take are as important as the
Good.
work
How
that
are
you do.
you?
Oops, sorry. And if someone could mute themselves, that would be great. Um, so when you're thinking about structuring your day, figuring out when you're going to start, when you're going to stop, when you're going to take your breaks, when you're going to eat, try not to eat while you're working all the time too. Let your eating be a little bit of a relaxation time if you can. And for Lord's sake, leave the house if you can too. It's easy to go sometimes days with realizing, oh my gosh, I had no reason to leave the house. I'm worried about being in public. I'm worried about being with all these other people. So make sure you actually schedule that in. If you can get a walk in, if you can go somewhere, safe for sure, but even just getting out of the house to walk around the block will be really, really restorative for you. And then thinking about your work environment too, what kind of situation are you putting yourself into work? Is it the situation on the right with the nose where it's just super chaotic, or you're trying to multitask with children? And again, sometimes people have to do these things with their kids. They have to, try to do that multitasking and take care of them in that way. But if you can separate those two a little bit more, that would be much more optimal for your mental health, and potentially, maybe better for the kids as well. So try to create a home environment that really is your workspace, that's pleasant to be in. It's got those aspects of good light, maybe some plants, some decorative elements to it, even if you're just completely making it up out of a corner of your living room. We all have sort of different situations that we live in. Some people may have a single room they've got to adapt. Other people may have, quite some significant space in the house. I've known quite a number of people who are working from a basement, which can be okay. It can be quiet and isolated, and so you can create that space, but make sure your lighting is good down there, and make sure you have some airflow down there too, so you don't feel like you're just sort of locked in a cave, for hours and hours every day, because over time that can whittle away at sort of your mood and your morale. And so you want to be aware of the role that your environment is playing in your productivity and your mood and your positivity. So if you can, keep it reasonably tidy, quiet, well lit, pleasant, and as much as you can, also really try to separate your playing spaces from your sleeping spaces from your workspaces. It's really easy to hop into bed with the computer and start doing work, but then your brain and your body gets all confused about, like, what is this location? What do I do in this spot? So we become conditioned as creatures to go into certain modes when we're in certain environments. And that's really what you're trying to do with your work at home space. You're trying to create an area that when you're in there, you're focused, you're on, that's your work time. And when you move away from that, that's your play time, that's your relaxation time. And that'll help you stay regulated and help keep your rhythms much more healthy. This can play into roles of things like, your sleep hygiene is a big thing, right? Sitting in bed at night before you go to bed with your computer screen on, looking at your emails or whatever you might be doing, that bright light is inhibiting your body's own ability to go into the relaxation state. It's decreasing your melatonin. It's making it harder to fall asleep and making your sleep less restful. So be mindful of those kinds of things and see if you can shift anything around if you need to optimize those. Another really, really big issue is the amount of sitting that we do. So as they say, they used to say sitting is the new smoking. And then there was kind of a backlash against the sitting is a new smoking idea, because smoking is really much worse than sitting, although, sitting's not great. So it's still a big issue. And when we think about the negative consequences of that, these are things that build up over time, and they just sort of gradually like accumulate on top of you. So pain in your neck, your back, your jaws, your hips, your arms, especially if you, I love these pictures of the skeletons here too, because if you look at the skeleton and the posture that this person is in, you know, we always think of the head as, think of your head as sort of like a bowling ball. It's like a 10-pound bowling ball. And when you put it this far in front of your shoulders and this far off of your spine, you put all sorts of stress on the muscles that have to support that bowling ball. And people will invariably get like tight spots in their upper traps and their scalene muscles and their sternocleidomastoid muscles. And when those become dysfunctional, that leads to pain syndromes. And some of the most common pain syndromes that'll lead to are headache pain. This is called myofascial referred pain syndromes or trigger point referred pain syndromes. And people come in, they'll say they have temporal headache pain, sometimes frontal headache pain, sometimes occipital, back of the head headache pain. And a lot of it is really coming from those muscles and from that dysfunctional biomechanics. So when you can line yourself up, you know, invest in a good chair. Like they don't have to be super expensive, but you have something like this, that is just not going to work. Get something you can adjust so that it's ergonomically correct for you. Try to keep that spine and hips and head all aligned, and that will decrease a lot of pain syndromes. You know, fatigue from excess sitting too, though, even with optimal positioning, we still need to get up and move around. Your blood does not circulate as well when you're sitting as when you're moving. You know, your mood goes, you know, off a little bit too, and your kind of brain and body get a little confused. Am I supposed to be relaxing and sleeping? Or am I supposed to be awake and active? So if you can get up and move around, you know, at least once an hour for 5 or 10 minutes an hour, that's really fantastic. And that will help a lot and go a long way to decreasing the negative consequences of the prolonged sitting time. You know, obesity can be a consequence of this too. We're not burning as many calories. And again, we're sitting there and we may be snacking. It's really easy to do unconscious and comfort eating during this time frame. Our stress levels are high and it just feels good. We'll talk about some of the nutrition aspects too soon. But being mindful of that. Sitting for prolonged periods of time, deconditioning can happen, high blood pressure can arise, and you start under breathing, you start under oxygenating. It starts to tip your body out of balance, and things just be kind of spiraling, you know, out of the range of optimal. And this can even lead to decreased sexual function. So I include this because, hey, whatever your motivator is to get up every 10 minutes, if that is you, I want to not end up there. I want to get up and move around. Let's do it. But if you're sitting and you are compressing the nether regions for hours and hours of every day so that they're, you know, getting stuck with fluids and congestion and compressing nerves and not getting optimal blood flow, and the muscles are all getting tight and unused properly and stiff, that's going to be a loss of function. So just as any part of you can, that is too. So, you know, whatever your motivator is, it's all interconnected. So one of the best ways I've found to get by this is to get yourself a standing desk. And, you know, honestly, if you don't have a standing desk, I'm actually at our Emory Road office right now too. We don't have a standing desk. I have a box I have here that I can put my computer on and I can work on top of that box. Again, it doesn't have to be a big investment, but if you're working at home full time, really buying a decent, what's called a standing desk can be really useful. And those come in a number of different forms. It can just be a table that's elevated like this, or it can be an object like this that actually goes up and down. You can pick these up at the big box stores for not too much money. And it allows you to adjust your seating so you can sit sometimes and stand sometimes. And it really can help you sort of optimize those biomechanics. And, you know, it allows you to do things like stand on your toes, give a good stretch, and just move around a lot more freely during the day. So this has been an amazing thing for me, and I really strongly recommend it as something you consider. You know, with the standing desk too, I also would recommend starting standing at the beginning of the day. What I have found from myself, you may or may not be the same, is if I start out sitting, I sit a lot longer before I stand. And if I start out standing, I just kind of keep standing, and I find I've been standing for some hours before I you know, reevaluate and want to sit down. So that can be a super easy, super useful tool. And again, even if you are sitting for long periods of times, there are things that you can do to optimize that experience. So as we said, watch your posture, get up for at least 10 minutes per hour. But there are things like chair yoga that you can do. Chair yoga is just super simple, right? It doesn't have to be super formal yoga, but it's really just a matter of doing some good stretches, expanding your thorax, your chest. So you're taking nice deep breaths, getting those muscles moving and just remembering to be in your body when you're working so that you don't end up doing this for hours and hours a day, right? Where you're sort of hunched over and your arms are all tied up and curled up and you're not getting the blood flow that you need or the movement that you need. There are charts like this all over the internet that you can pull up. And I just encourage you to keep one handy as a cue to remind you to do that. A lot of times people are working, like during this talk, for example, too, without the cameras on. And if you are at a talk like this, or you're at a meeting and the camera's off too, there is no reason you can't be doing some exercise, right? So many of us have not gone back to the gym or done things like that because of coronavirus, but get yourself a pair of like inexpensive hand weights, and you can have the camera off and you can be moving around, stretching, doing yoga, doing planks, whatever you want to do, during some of these meetings, and use that time to keep yourself fit and healthy. And you will find your mood is better, your tone is better, sort of all aspects of function are better as well. You'll actually be less hungry too. You won't want to be craving that food because that food is really a distraction and a self-soothing. And if you're exercising, that gives you other types of positive, chemicals that go through your body that make you feel, calm and satisfied. So I really encourage you to use sort of that downtime productively, and enjoy that, while you're doing at appropriate meetings. So nutrition, again, this is another one. So this can be your friend or your foe. So plan ahead, have healthy snacks available throughout the day, and drink plenty of water. Think about the things you're eating though. And there are great recipes online too for healthy snacks, whether it be nuts and seeds or dried fruit. This is like a chia pudding up there that you see. I'm a big fan of smoothies as well too. Not too much fruit juice in them. Try to keep the fructose content low, but you can make a tasty smoothie that's a really healthy choice for you. As it shows, hard-boiled eggs, hummus, things like that, that you can snack on pretty freely, so whether it's baby carrots or cucumber slices too, if you just feel like you need to be chewing on something and have something crunchy, those are really good choices, and those will not turn on you. They won't turn into, extra poundage or, blood sugar imbalances. And so sort of preemptively loading yourself with options is a really, really wise thing to do. When you're thinking about your foods as well, I always like to point to this difference between like low nutrient density foods and high nutrient density foods. This will often go on along with something we call the glycemic index, which is basically how quickly food turns to sugar in your bloodstream, right? And if you look at these foods on the left, especially like up here on this upper left-hand picture, like these are people snacking foods a lot of times. Simple carbohydrates, simple carbs. These turn to sugar really fast, and they will pack on the pounds. They will, give you a brief sense of sort of sweet satisfaction, a little serotonin boost, then followed by a crash. And so they are truly a fickle friend. They're also not full of vitamins and minerals. They are absent of those things and will actually rob your body of some of those nutrients that you need. So the more you can look to these foods on the right and find foods that are brightly colored, have good fiber in them, are still tasty, but really nourish your body, you send yourself down a different path over time. We think of combining this with the ideas of the sitting for prolonged periods of time. Eating this low nutrient density, high glycemic index, simple carbohydrate diet while sitting for hours a day is the fabulous recipe, while you're stressed, is the fabulous recipe to put you into metabolic syndrome and pre-diabetes, if not full-on type 2 diabetes. Whereas exercising regularly, keeping yourself moving, eating a high nutrient density diet with a lower glycemic index is your recipe for fitness and success. And so really, simple changes in the things that you're choosing throughout the day can really change the trajectory of your health span over a period of years. So, take stock of what you're snacking on, take stock of what you're eating, and see if you can make some simple switches. For nuts and seeds, I mean, those can be a great thing to snack on. I do recommend that those be raw if possible. Raw almonds, raw pumpkin seeds, walnuts, things like that have a very high nutrient density. They'll fill you up, but you tend to not overeat them when they're raw. They sit a little heavier on the stomach a little quicker. And so it'll sort of naturally self-limit you. If you want to toast them a little bit, you can do that. You may find you eat a little bit more when you do that, but I do discourage you from using nuts and seeds that have been fried in oils or have coatings on them or things like that, those have been taken from healthy food category into sort of problematic food category at that point. So some of those, diamond nuts that are so tasty with the thick powder on them that are cooked in palm oil, they taste good, but they are no longer a health food, I hate to say. So yeah, so just considering all of those aspects. We also want to be really, really mindful and really cautious with substance use during this time frame. And I like these pictures of the happy rats giving each other a hug and a very clear, like warm smile with each other. And it's pointing back to some experiments that were done in the 70s that were called the Rat Park experiments by Bruce Alexander. And there is some debate about these and how much to interpret them and understand them. But the basic thing that he found that I think we all believe to be true in medicine is that things like addiction are, they have a biologic basis to them for sure. There are genetic subtypes who have a tendency towards addiction more than other people, but there are huge components of social interaction and social context that play a big role as well in affecting our tendency to use substances. And so what he did with the rats is he compared, he gave them the option to have some water with morphine in it and some water that was just water, and looked at when the rats chose which one. And when he would take the rats and he would put them in isolation in a little cell with no social company, they just sat on that morphine and just consumed and consumed and consumed. But when he took them out and he put them in a nice play space with a lot of room and other peers to play with and to run around and be distracted with, they very quickly transitioned to choosing water over the morphine. They actually preferred that social contact and that social interaction. And we're writing onto the rat's experience a little bit, but presumably the morphine dulled them down too much and they were actually seeking that social contact. So be aware during this really complicated time of pandemic plus social strife plus all of these things, when we're being pushed so far towards isolation, that the tendency for all of us, regardless of our genetic predisposition, is to have that increased risk of self-medicating with any number of types of substances. So just be mindful of that and understand the value of keeping those social connections, whether it's one or two people who are your touchstones. Make sure you have those people, and if you don't, reach out to some of the resources that we have available here at UH. There are support services through Connor, and other aspects of the system as well too, that you can reach out to if you feel like you need connection or you're having problems sort of keeping your mood up or with any sort of usage. So, take a look at this. These slides will be available afterwards too, but, and look for warning signs of sort of tipping into a little bit too much consumption. Because I think, as I said, we're all at risk of this, and this particular time frame makes it even more so. And so we want to be mindful. Keep in touch with each other as well too. Have some friends that you just touch base with and make sure, you're checking in on each other and that you're doing okay. Allowing for kids and pets too. We're on all these meetings, we're on these Zoom meetings, and it's not that we want to have kids and pets at every meeting. It is not always appropriate and certainly not helping throughout the meeting. But I've seen just too many times now when I've been on a Zoom meeting and someone's child has walked into the room and they're like, oh my God, and they freak out and they're like, get out of the room, get out of the room. Like it's this massive catastrophe. It's like, it's not. Everybody just needs to stop and take a deep breath. It's fun to see the kids. It's fun to see the animals. And we're all human, and it brings out our humanity a little bit more too. And I just show this picture of this interview that was done on BBC with this gentleman whose kids wandered into the room, and it was sort of an example of a little bit of how kind of not to handle things in a sense, but it was also very, very kind of cute and funny because he sort of cracked up a little bit during the interview, and his wife comes in and she's like trying to scurry the kids out of the room. And if you Google this, you'll find it pretty quickly because it was a lot of discussion. And so let's give ourselves all a little break and just sort of allow for that kind of happiness and joy that our little ones and our pets bring us, and share that with each other. We have actually hired fully trained service animals at Rainbow now too for full-time care, because animals are such a positive emotional influence and help with so many aspects of social development in kids. And so, really it's therapeutic in a very evidence-based way. So thinking about our organizational culture as well too, and just trying to remember to commit to sort of positive engagement, watch out for each other. Think of this as we are all in this together. We don't know what each other has going on. You know, there are stressors that everybody has. So try to spread positivity throughout your interactions. You know, be mindful of your tone of voice, be mindful of the words that you choose, and when it's good to sort of take a deep breath, you know, hold back, sit on that email overnight, whatever it is that you need to do in order to you know, decrease sort of the tendency to take stress from one bucket and move it into the communal bucket as well. There are different aspects to increasing like wellness, well-being, and performance as well too. So thinking about what are you doing sort of in each of these domains to make sure you're taken care of, and to what degree you can to take care of your you know, coworkers, if not just your family and friends too. So physiological aspects, are you taking care of yourself at that physical level? Are you getting good sleep? Are you doing good biomechanics while you work? Are you choosing making good nutritious choices? Safety aspects too. How do people feel? Security, stability, finances. These are aspects of well-being and resilience we talk about as well as being really critical components. You know, sense of belonging, like, are we cultivating a culture of inclusion? You know, I think we do this well at UH, and I know there are people working to do it even better, but there's been, you know, good data to showing and good studies to, you know, knowledge about the value of belonging in terms of resilience, right? Even if the finances aren't perfect, even if, you know, our physical choices are not optimal, if we're in a culture and in a community where we feel like we're looking out for one another, and there's this acceptance of diversity within the culture too, it actually increases resilience across the board. So, you know, sort of take stock of each of these pieces of the puzzle and look at places where you feel like you can optimize. So there's definitely a cost to low resilience. And to some degree, some of these slides are a little bit for those of you who might be managing other people as well. Many of us have reports who work with us. And this is actually some data from a study done by Cigna, and that it was actually really good. And, you know, to compliment an insurance company is a little interesting these days, but this was a really good set of work I think they did. And you can look up some of this information for more detail. But just looking at what is resilience and what fosters more resilience among, you know, the workforce, and then also some of the dangers of not fostering that, and how that decreases, you know, employee loss, and then you've got to get a new employee, and then you've got to retrain all these people, and everybody's got to get to know them, and there's a whole huge consequence that comes from sort of not investing in ourselves. So the more we can invest in ourselves, sort of the better. So ways to build resilience, focused on that holistic health management aspect. You know, we've got a lot of resources. We've got a new wellness you know, program and resources that have been initiated. You know, utilize those tools, work on your relationships, make sure that, you know, if you have reports for you, or maybe you report to somebody else, that you feel like there's a structure of checking in with each other. And even if it's like nothing's wrong, just checking in and saying, are you okay? How are things going? Keeping eye on diversity in the workplace too increases resilience. Again, that sense of openness, welcomeness, acceptance, has subtle psychologic reinforcers that increase the general sort of wellness of the whole environment, and creates a more positive place to be a part of. And similarly, working on inclusivity, however that needs to be manifested. So facilitating two-way communications. Again, workers who have frequent and proactive conversations at work with managers and leadership, including about difficult topics, have higher resilience. You know, don't hold things in, don't bottle them up, don't keep them to yourself, bring them up and try to talk them out in a productive way, and that'll improve your experience. You know, promote the availability of access to resources and tools. We'll talk about a little bit of some resources available now in a few minutes, and balance that use of technology too. You know, I think oftentimes we feel like we're so connected, because many of us do, because we're on Zoom all the time or some other platform, and are talking to each other in meetings, you know, all day long. But then there may also be your colleagues who are sitting at home and aren't on all those meetings. They work in isolation. They have a job that does not demand a lot of meeting time, and they're working it from home, those people can get really isolated. So be sure you're checking in on them. Or if you are one of those people in that situation, be sure, you're checking in with other people. Even if you just say to your boss, you know what, I need to talk to you like a couple times a week just to say hi and check in. That's a really reasonable thing to ask and a really positive, proactive, resilience enforcing behavior. So then along those lines, plan for your social connection. As adults, we're not as used to having to make safe friend play dates as the kids are. But, if you have kids, you know about making play dates and hopefully safe play dates. And you've got to set it up. And whether you do that online with, an online platform, there's one that my cousins have used for this time period to play bridge with each other like a couple of times a week that have a video interface. So they essentially, can talk to each other and play cards together and have that social connection. There are cooking classes online. There's yoga, Pilates, all sorts of Tai Chi, Qigong classes, or just get out in nature and enjoy the metro parks, the national parks, and the lakefront, and just really enjoy some of the resources that we have here in Cleveland. That is one of the things that I've enjoyed the most since coming to Cleveland, is that much as I love Chicago and it's a beautiful city and the lakefront's beautiful, if you want to get anywhere with trees and hills, you got to do some driving. And Cleveland has the whole Metro Park system just a stone's throw away. So take advantage of those. They're really lovely even this time of year. And, maybe find a friend to be outside with so that you all can do some walking together and connecting together. So I wanted to spend a little time just talking about, gratitude practice, and gratitude practice can sound a little bit, I think for me, when I started thinking about it some years ago, it felt a little naive and it felt a little bit too simplistic. But when you think about your experience as really being like, where am I focusing my attention, and, what am I putting my energy into? And then consciously choosing to focus on things that are positive. Your mood in many ways is just a scale balance of net good versus net negative, and which one is winning now. And which one is winning now has a lot to do with where you're placing your focus. So different people do gratitude practices in different ways. Some people love to journal. Some people just like to sit and think. And again, your gratitude doesn't have to be massive. You don't have to have gotten like a multi-million-dollar award. You won the billion-dollar lottery or something like that to be grateful. Go as micro as you need to go to find something that you're grateful for, whether it's the roof over your head, food on the table, having a job, or whether it's as simple as, I have a cool glass of water in front of me right now, and I am grateful for that, and everything else is bad. There is always something that we can find that gratitude for. And really what you're doing is, it's to some degree using, mental tricks, but it's also like taking control of the driver's seat of your own mind and emotions. So maybe you find things that make you laugh too. Find some comedy routines on the internet that you like to watch, and it just gives you a really good laugh. Appreciating small things, as it says, taking the beauty of nature, practicing acts of kindness. In times of great need, it's also times of great opportunity to do good work. So there's also a lot of power that comes from helping other people. So, we always want to ask ourselves too, like, what am I doing sort of today to make the world a better place? Like, the world is hurt. The world is in need of repair in so many ways. What am I doing to proactively, positively contribute to something that actually makes it better? Because focusing on the negativity of the news, focusing on, the crisis of the moment or the nuance of the crisis of the moment doesn't actually change the outcome of the crisis, and it just stresses you out, and it doesn't add any positive energy, to the pool that we're all in together. So think about those different things and really take stock and assessment and see, what can you do each day to make things just a little bit better. And there are some scientifically proven benefits of gratitude here, which are just sort of, been studied and are nice to see. So I like this image too, because it's just real straightforward. Focus on what's in your control, right? It's easy to get lost in the presence of uncertainty. Will I be able to get the vaccine? Will the vaccine work? Will the virus evolve? What are other people going to do? Will the nation melt down? Oh my gosh, we have a lot to worry about right this moment. So bring it back to center. Focus on the moment. Focus on what's under your control. practice acts of kindness, self-compassion, as well as compassion to others. Distract yourself from the chaos and recognize that you're paying attention to the chaos of the world does not actually improve the status of the chaos of the world. Taking positive action in the moment improves the status of the chaos. So it becomes really a discipline. Mindfulness as sort of a field was brought into public attention, I think that really in the 90s, but it's something that's obviously been a part of Eastern thought for thousands of years. You can be engaged in any activity, and it's really about engaging the senses, bringing your mind to the present. What's your body feel like? What are the smells of the room? What's the lighting like? Things that bring you into the present moment so you are here and now. And generally there's this aspect of doing that without judgment, right? So even if the present moment is unpleasant, we have this ability to detach from it a little bit, where there's the present moment and then there's us as the viewer of the present moment. And with practice, you can become better and better at being the viewer of the present moment without getting caught up in it. But many people will just be dragged, they said like being knocked around in waves in an ocean where you're just getting batted about with thoughts and don't take the opportunity to say, wait a minute, I don't have to latch on to every negative thing I see on the news, hear on the radio, whatever. And I can observe that without having an emotional response to it or getting led down a rabbit hole. So there are some movement-based ways of increasing mindfulness, things like yoga, tai chi, qigong, guided visualizations, relaxation techniques, lots of different ways to go. Can this improve things like chronic pain? It can. Mindfulness meditation, most prominent effect on psychological aspects of living with chronic pain, including improving the associated depression and improving quality of life. Does it make the pain go away completely? It does not. Does it change how you interpret and respond to the pain? Absolutely. Pain is a signal, and you have some degree of control over how much you pay attention to that signal and how you interpret it. So this is an interesting image too, because I think mindfulness used to be a little bit more like soft science, kind of like I don't know about that, in the medical community, until we got fun toys like functional MRIs that allow us to actually visualize what the brain is doing while we're being mindful. And so this is just showing that mindfulness meditation and pain relief, looking at the mechanistic pieces and how when you meditate in certain ways, it actually is visualizable, and it changes the way your brain is functioning. And it interestingly brings out some points of there are different parts of your brain that are playing different roles in your experience of pain. And so there's pain intensity, and then there's also pain interpretation or unpleasantness rankings. And it turns out different parts of your brain are involved in interpreting pain in those different ways. And, through the meditation, you can adjust the way your brain responds to both the intensity of the signal and also how good or bad the signal is. Things like, the hormone oxytocin is most well known for changing our experience of pain. That can take a negative pain sensation and make it pleasant, or it can actually just make it irrelevant. And we see this a lot, in like birthing experience too. The more oxytocin you have on board during the birthing experience, the less unpleasant the delivery is. And that's sort of an extreme example of the power of oxytocin, but it's our bonding hormone. It is our protecting others hormone. It's our social connection hormone. And so, there are things that you can do to boost your oxytocin level that, like look at pictures of babies smiling, look at pictures of puppies playing together, things like that give you that warm feeling are really boosting your oxytocin also too, and will change the unpleasantness of pain sensations that you may be experiencing at the time. The other thing that's really interesting to think about too is that meditation experience is associated with increased cortical thickness. Our own research director, Jeff Dusek, was involved in this really pioneering kind of research that showed that parts of your cerebral cortex, the higher brain, component, they say the cortical thickness, actually increased in people who meditated over time. So, in a sense, it's not surprising, but, 15 years ago, it was a little more surprising. I think, we're coming out of a place where we thought the brain was just static. Once you reached adulthood, it was done and then it declined and then that was it. But what we've really learned is the brain is like pretty much every other tissue in your body, that it responds to how you use it. So similarly, like if you go to the gym and you work out, your muscles will get bigger or more toned depending on the type of workout you're doing. If you increase your weight bearing, your bones will get more dense and they will adapt in shape over time to the forces being put on them. Similarly, if you use your brain repetitively in certain ways, it actually adapts and changes. That's called neuroplasticity, right? And it gives you some lasting benefits. So when you do anything from meditation or learning to play the piano or other musical instruments or any sort of repetitive act, your brain actually grows and develops to make it so you can do that better. So there are lasting benefits that come with doing this repetitively over time. And so I just wanted to put a little plug in here for a benefit that I hope you know about, but if you don't, we just sent another announcement out about it this morning in the UH4U newsletter that we've been able to negotiate a free 1-year subscription to what's called the Health Journeys app that has over 260 guided audio meditations for you. So if you're someone, who doesn't really know how to meditate and is looking for some guided meditation, loads of options in this app for you. I just had a delightful patient visit with a very lovely young person today who's like, I don't like other people telling me what I should be thinking during my meditation. I was like, well, okay then. If that's how you feel, that's all good too. If you want to do a simple Zen meditation alone, you control your own mind, that's awesome. I have another young person who's a patient who says that, listening to a guided meditation at night has helped him fall asleep now, for 5 years, and it's just been a life-changing thing. So take a look at these, experiment with them and see what works for you. Get to know how your own mind works and how to drive that car, how to utilize it effectively. There are things like Tai Chi or Qigong or things like that also a lot of people don't like stationary kinds of meditation. So whether it's like a simple Zen meditation, I'll show you in a little bit, or the guided meditations, if you're just sitting still, some people like, I can't do that, I need to move. So fine, no problem. That's the whole basis of Tai Chi. That's a large basis of Qigong. That's a large basis of yoga, where you get to do essentially moving meditation, where you still control your mind, you still control your breathing, but you're in the moment and you're able to do moving. Even if you don't have training in this, there are things like walking meditations where you just be in the moment walking. There's like those labyrinths, some places you find even around the city, there's a few little gardens that have labyrinth gardens where you just walk this really simple stone path and be in the moment. And for many people, having that movement component just makes it really wonderful for them. This is a nice sort of summary statement that came out of some neuroscience research from the University of Miami. And I just sort of like the summary and encourage you to take a look at the original kind of paper. So you're overwhelmed and it's not your fault. So they're talking about your attention. And I think, this is again something that's been really core to Eastern thought, but I think we're just really embracing in Western thought. And that's that idea is that there's us, there's sort of who we are as the observer, and then there's this point of attention, right, that moves around. And as the point of attention moves, that's what we focus on, and that's what becomes our reality. That's what we react to. So if I'm in my room alone with no connection to the outside world, I'm reacting maybe to this room, maybe to something I'm thinking about outside the room. But then like I turn on the TV and there's a negative news story and my attention goes there, and all of a sudden my stress hormones go up. In a sense, that's my own fault. I directed my attention to that negative event. I didn't keep that distance between myself and my responses. And I get dragged into sort of this morass of irritability, anger, whatever it is at the moment, tragedy, etc. So, similarly, if you need technology, or have technology, focus on something positive. Again, find that comedy routine, find whatever the inspirational lecture is, find the beautiful poetry or music, focus on that and let yourself get immersed in that positivity. take control of things too. So you could think that your attention is vulnerable to stress. The more tired you are, the less control many people will have over it. The more you feel threatened, the less control you have over it. Your attention will wander. You can time travel, right, with your attention. You can be focused on the future. You can be focused on the past and completely miss what's going on in the moment. So think about that. Spend some time meditating with that idea and see how it informs you. And the other thing I thought was important about their research is they said, we found that as little as 12 minutes a day for 3 to 5 days a week is protective over high stress intervals. Meaning, you don't have to meditate for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for 30 years to get benefit. There's sort of sometimes this almost mythologic like stories of the yogis going off into the mountain caves to do this and that. You don't have to do that to get benefit from meditation. So maybe 10 minutes of that time of your day when you were sitting and you're getting up, you just spend maybe 10 or 12 minutes doing a standing meditation or a walking meditation or even a sitting meditation in good posture. And you will start to have your brain, its neuroplasticity change, and you'll start to see those benefits very quickly. I think Dr. Pronovost is always talking about, like, for exercise, like what dose do you need to be useful to you? And so this is sort of your dose for mindfulness meditation. Again, you don't have to overdose on it. So let's take a few minutes. We just have a little bit of time left, and I want to talk to you a little bit about some breathing techniques. So the belly breathing being the first, and belly breathing is really your core technique. And it's really, it's amusing to try to work on this with people and teach it to people, because it kind of goes contrary to the way we tend to breathe. Kids will often, it takes many tries to get this right. So even though it sort of seems easy, we actually don't do it readily. But the idea behind belly breathing is simply that you're trying to inflate your lungs fully. And so the way you do that is you start with one hand on your belly, just you say below your rib cage. You can even put it on your belly button. You put your other hand on the top of your chest. And when you breathe in, you're trying to let your belly push your hand away from you without moving your chest. So rather than, I know you can't see my belly, but you can see the upper part of my chest going up and down, right? So you're trying to do that. You're trying to drop your diaphragm, inflate your lungs from the bottom, and then gradually inflate your full lungs and let the air out. So you go. Just do this like a couple times. And most of the time you'll feel yourself settle. If you do it too much, you'll feel a little lightheaded. Don't worry about that. Sit down if you need to. It'll pass very quickly. And it'll just take the stress down some notches. And the way I really like to think about this is, we come wired sort of evolutionarily to breathe in certain ways when we are in certain situations. So when you are in a panic situation where you need to run away from a saber-toothed tiger, whatever it is, you tend to breathe rapidly and shallowly and mostly from the upper part of your chest. So you breathe like, right? That is not relaxation breathing. That's like hyperventilation. I need oxygen in my body. I got to get rid of like waste gases in my body. I got to do all these things to stay alive. It's survival breathing. And a lot of the day when we're sitting in our chair, long time at our desk, not moving our diaphragm, breathing only from our upper chest, we're essentially, oh good, I'm glad you like the belly breathing. We're essentially like doing stress breathing. So by doing the belly breathing, you are basically like taking control of your physiology, and you're telling your brain, who fairly is in a stone vault locked away from the world, using little orifices like sight and sound and smell and taste and other signals to figure out, like, is it supposed to be stressed out or not? You're basically telling your body, we are not in a stress state, because if we were in a stress state, we would not be breathing like this. And it's sort of this reality that we have what's called bidirectional circuitry in our bodies. And that is to mean, for example, too, when you're happy, you smile, but we also know that when you smile, you can trick yourself into being happy. Same kind of thing. When you're relaxed, you breathe naturally, easily, dropping your diaphragm and inflating your lungs more. And yet when you choose to breathe in that way, you essentially make yourself relaxed through back engineering. So it's a really powerful tool that's super simple. And again, you can do that anywhere. And then there are nuances of that. So you take your belly breathing and you change the timing of it. And these are just a few suggestions. These are not like perfect and must be done, rules. But this is one called 478 breathing that Andrew Weil talks about doing. You might have seen it on his website. Other people talk about it. Really, Ayurveda, which is the medicine coming out of South Asian India, has this whole like field of what's called pranayama breathing, which is the study and science of breath. And so, depending on your interests, you can head down that road and start studying some of their thought. And they have quite elaborate and sophisticated, methods of breathing to achieve different, kinds of states. But 478 breathing is, again, just sort of an add-on to belly breathing that allows you to have a structure that you do just a few times a day, every day, to condition yourself into a relaxation state. And that's another piece of this, is the more you do it, the more powerful it will become, because the moment you start to do it, once you've done it a lot, your body's going, oh, we're going to be relaxed, and you relax much faster. And so the things I would say about 478 breathing, or any of these two that I just want to nuance, is that when it says hold your breath to a count of 7, so when they say hold your breath, there are two ways to hold your breath. One is to essentially like inhale and just wait. So you go like that. The other way is to actually, we say block your glottis, which means shutting off the back of your throat and locking the breath in, where you go, right? So don't do the second one. Don't block your glottis. That's actually not relaxation breathing. So you're trying to hold your breath without blocking down, because you want it to sort of be a nice continuous ebb and flow, like waves in the ocean coming to, not like, right? So just a little bit of extra advice to make that more productive. There's also, a suggestion for what they call square breathing, where they use numbers of 4. Inhale to 4, gently hold for 4, exhale to 4, gently rest for 4, and do that. And again, you're not going to do these 100 times in a row or you will get lightheaded. You just need to do them a few times, but doing them regularly throughout the day will gradually increase your ability to take yourself into a relaxation state very quickly. And then we don't have time to go through this today too, but we'll give this to you as well too, just sort of the basic Zen master meditation, which is essentially picturing a clear blue sky with no clouds. And then as thoughts sort of come into your mind, you just say, okay, that's a cloud, and I'm just going to let that drift through. And you try to let them drift through in and out without latching onto them. And so combining your belly breathing, maybe your numbered breathing, with this meditation over time can help you feel really alert and relaxed. And it gives you that distance between stimulus and response that will make your life better across the board. So thinking about that. I also wanted to point out, though, that because this is just a sort of, quick talk that we're having, and I'm grateful to have it, but we have a lot of other resources available. So we have some free resources through our virtual self-care center, through our Sessions Counter Resilience Center. And so this is our current offerings right now too. So these are available, to you anytime. And these are all free resources. We also have, if you want to engage in much more of a class too, where, you do repeated sections with more of a confined group of people. These are a small fee to participate, but are also available, through the Connor resources and through uhhospitals.org, the health information. So you'll be able to find information on these, and they're just some resources we have in the system for you. And so let me just tell you a little bit at Connor Integrative Health Network, like to heal, to teach, to discover. And we're adding in a range of services that can be sometimes harder to find. And also, have vetted providers who we hope you'll love and who are really qualified people in all these different domains. So we have an acupuncture team, a massage team, mind-body therapies, a lot of which are available, you just saw through classes, physician services, including what I do, which are integrative medicine consults, and I do those for pediatrics. Dr. Calbert will see kids and adults for integrative consults, and we have a new integrative medicine provider coming in soon too, Dr. O'Connor, who's going to join us, and will increase the availability of that service. Those are generally covered by insurance, and so are a nice option. If you don't know where to start with integrative medicine, mind-body therapies, you can come to one of us and we can help to, for you to figure out what your next steps are, put a plan together. We have osteopathic care, chiropractic care under our physician services, also covered by insurance, and some integrative psychiatry services too. And then if you happen to be inpatient or working in the inpatient setting, you may have encountered any number of our fantastic expressive arts therapy team, the music therapists, art therapists, as well. And so we hope you'll take advantage of those resources. Again, this is what I do to help create a customized treatment plan for, in this case, your young ones, your children, teens or young adults, and then, but also through the team for all ages, and can be a great place to start if you're not sure where else to start. So we talked about those. If you scan this QR code too, you can also find some guided meditations that we have available that our own team leader, Dr. Françoise Adan, has put together some really nice guided meditations for you too. And then if you haven't signed up already for our weekly newsletter, you can email Allie and she can get you added to our list. And that has upcoming events, classes, self-care tips, things like that to just help keep you connected and give you ideas. We are located throughout the UH system, currently at least 17 locations, inpatient and outpatient, and are working to expand services in general. So thank you. And we have a couple minutes left, literally a couple minutes. And so I'm happy to take questions if anyone would like. And thank you for the comments. And I really appreciate so many of you joining me today to have this discussion.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Miller. I will be sending out an email shortly with the presentation on it. So you'll have all those links. You'll have the code to scan as well. So all the information will be included in that email. And wonderful presentation today, Dr. Miller.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for having me. Okay, it looks like there is a question, is there a Tai Chi app? I don't know if I'm sure there are apps out there. I don't have one on the top of my mind. There's a lot of good YouTube resources actually for Tai Chi and Qigong. And so you can do sometimes some searching there and find some nice introductory programs, and then get a taste of what that might feel like. I would say with Tai Chi and Qigong, there are thousands of different forms. So what you're looking for basically is just a form that kind of resonates with you, that feels both doable and interesting, and then a teacher who you connect with as well. And hopefully that's a good place to get started. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the comments too.
Yes, everyone have a wonderful rest of your day.
All right. Take care.